Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to Universal Truth Evolution on blogtalkradio.com. I am your host, once again, Jerry Avalos, bringing you all kinds of groovy information that major media tends to shy away from. All kinds of interesting and sometimes perceivably scary stuff out there, but as we do here, we change anything that is fear, anger, hate, and we turn it into something constructive and positive, and we use it to create the future that we all know we want to see. And the interesting thing today is we have a very intriguing guest who we're still waiting for her to call, but I'm sure she will be with us shortly. None other than crop circle expert SUZANNE Taylor. Some of you may be familiar with some of her work. She's been in the crop circle researching field for 20 years or over now, and has conducted a lot of her own tours to the various crop circle hotspots over the years. So very knowledgeable and lots of hands-on experience at dealing with this phenomenon, which I think it's kind of funny that they're called crop circles still, considering really they're more they're formations, I would say, than circles or traditional circles of what we would say. Especially considering some of the more well-known ones that I'm sure we'll be getting into with Susan here when we get a hold of her. So we will go ahead and talk about a few things until then, but I guess until she shows up, I can go ahead and give a little bio about Susan. So here's a little blurb about her and her endeavors and what she's done up until this point in really quick encapsulated fashion. So Susanne Taylor is a Phi Beta Kappa summa cum laude graduate from New York University. She's a founder of Mighty Companions, a non-profit organization dedicated to furthering the consciousness shift sweeping through humanity. A former actress, she crossed over to the other side of the camera as executive producer of Crop Circles, Quest for Truth, released in 2002. In February 2009, her latest production, What on Earth, won the EBE Award for Best Feature Documentary at the UFO Congress Film Festival. So that is her current film, which is What on Earth. Once again, that's just great research. So I highly recommend checking out all of her work, including some of the interviews she's done, including one with UT's own favorite Aaron McCollum, which was very informative, I thought. So what I might go ahead and do until so I can go ahead and see if I can get a hold of Susan here is I may go ahead and just play us a little tune right now, get us in the mood, get us a little mellow, and see if I can get her on the line while we're doing that, rather than try to multitask and blah, 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 and sound kind of stupid. So I'm just going to play this little mellow song right now, a couple minutes, while I give Susan a ring here. So hang tight, everyone. Be right back. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. And we actually are here with our guest now, Suzanne. Are you there?
Hello.
All right.
I was waiting for you to keep talking, but you stopped. So.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm kind of multitasking here. So, but welcome to the show, Suzanne. We're glad to have you.
Well, I love talking about this subject, so may we fill 2 interesting hours.
Oh yeah, and it's so much to really delve into. That's crop circles and crop formations are one of the things I like to point people to who maybe might even be new into really researching things, just because it's something that's been going on for so long and there's a lot of data now and such. So.
Well, it's also stuff that everybody can investigate as opposed to the UFO kind of things that come and go, and you have to read other people's accounts. But should people want to take themselves to the scene, everybody can experience them firsthand, which is really why I find myself drawn to them as opposed to the other amazing things that would change the world. But the circles seem to me to have the best chance of doing that, which is why I'm interested in the first place. We need to change the world.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things I opened the show with about what we try to do here at Universal Truth Evolution, which we just take all of the information that comes out, which and there's a lot of bad with the good, but then turning it into the positive creation that we all want to see in this world.
Well, really, some of us get that bug and get dedicated to trying to help. It's funny, I was just in Mexico for a presentation down there. I was in San Felipe, and it was a big development down there that's all Americans. It was funny. I mean, the only Mexicans were waiters. But it was so odd. I mean, my host, the boyfriend of my host is rather dedicated also. She produces things. But her boyfriend, he plays water volleyball. For 4 hours a day, he plays water volleyball. I mean, I'm at my computer until 11 o'clock every night and, just trying to get the word out about how this world needs to change and what we can do about it. Sitting there watching this guy play water volleyball, I thought, oh, whoa, this is a really different life.
Yeah, I hear you. It's interesting how so many of us are, tirelessly try to share all this information, and then it's kind of like, then we kind of look around us and we're like, oh yeah, I guess it is Super Bowl time, isn't it?
Well, yeah, you have to think. You think, well, wait a minute, am I crazy or are they, or are we all crazy? I don't know.
Oh yeah, I think we're all a little bit crazy.
I don't know. I guess we all get our mission and our calling, and in some ways it's sort of enviable. This guy doesn't watch TV. He doesn't read newspapers, and well, okay, I guess that might make for a kind of a sweet life, but I don't know. I couldn't do it, so.
Yeah, there's so much more interesting stuff going on too. So, well, maybe what we should do is go for.
Maybe we should talk about crop circles.
Yeah, let's go talk about crop circles. Go have
a word or two. Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple. Might as well. Go ahead. Maybe we can have you go ahead and give yourself a little introduction for maybe those who aren't familiar with your work or now are in the archives.
Well, if I start at the end, it is that the reason I'm doing radio shows is because I have this wonderful documentary that I've made about the crop circle phenomenon. And just to tell people, where they can look for it, it's easy to remember, cropcirclemovie.com. We made it easy, where you'll see the trailer and you'll see my smiling face. And I urge you to get on it. But how did I get here? I have been interested in consciousness for decades, actually. And I used to produce programs related to many different topics, that relate to personal growth, spirituality, worldview. And occasionally I still do things on other topics, but mostly I've zeroed in on the circles because after they landed in my plate a long time ago, and I started producing programs about them, more and more I became convinced that they were the fastest way to change the world. And since the world is desperately in need of a different idea, I've sort of pared away the other things I was doing and concentrated on the circles. And, how do you get the word out to the masses, so to speak? You make movies. So that's what I've done. I was the executive producer of the first feature film that was ever done about them, documentary. It was called Crop Circle's Quest for Truth. It came out in 2002. You also find that on cropcirclemovie.com. If you click through to my current movie, which is called What on Earth, you'll also find that one. And when that was finished, I wasn't the filmmaker. It wasn't my concept, so to speak. And when that was finished, I thought, there's another film here that I can make. The first one is more or less a history of the circles. And the second one, which is I'm the filmmaker on, not the executive producer, I'm the producer-director, What on Earth, the tagline is Inside the Crop Circle Mystery. And that's really, you might say, about the passion of them. I know the most interesting people. I've been involved with the phenomenon. I've become part of that phenomenon, part of the so-called research community that gathers in England every summer from all over the world. And we're the people who do the movies, write the books, do lectures, take pictures, and research the, elements of the phenomenon, trying to figure out what's going on. So, that's kind of become the major focal point of my life. And I'm continually trying to get attention paid because I think that's really all it will take. If people really investigate the evidence, you don't even hardly need to do any more research. Lots has been done. It's not being paid attention to. And if people did pay attention, they would come away with the understanding that we really can't be making all of them. We have hoaxes, but we also have a real phenomenon. And, then if, people say, well, who cares if we're being visited, we're not being visited. Well, if we establish the fact that there is other intelligence in the universe, it will change everything. We'll have to rethink who we are, what we're doing here. We'll be in relation to something actually more intelligent than we are. They're visiting us and we're not visiting them. And that would put us in a whole different mindset, which would be very, very good for us. And we'd be in one conversation on Earth about what it is, what should we do about it. Our power structure would no longer be controlling us because we'd all be kind of equals in this conversation. All of us puzzled, curious, dazzled, and it would make us into kind of a one humanity, and that is what we need more than anything. We need to come out of this separation and antagonism and violence into a more thoughtful perspective on the world. So that's sort of what. Now we're going to talk about for a couple hours. Oh yeah, we'll talk more about crop circles.
Yeah.
Anyway,
definitely.
That's my thumbnail bio.
Yeah, thank you very much. And sounds like quite extensive history there. It's very cool.
Well, I have been involved. I'm not a filmmaker who went looking for a subject or found a subject. I was a subject that said, got to make film about this. So it's different from the way films usually are. People are usually peering into something, but I'm looking out from something, saying, okay, let's capture this, very profound understanding and connection that I have with all of this. So it gives it a rather unique flavor. It's a very sort of personal film, you might say.
Yeah.
So if you like my person, you'll like this movie.
Yeah, that's very cool, and I think that brings a genuine element to it that that I think everyone seems in this day and age in the truth movement, where you want to call this, is that's what they're looking for, because I think we've heard so much rehash now that it's good when you find someone who's genuinely into the subject and has a depth of knowledge. So I think that's really cool.
Well, indeed, I thought I had something valuable really to bring to the table because I'm so familiar with it. When you watch the other media product, all the cable stations every few years go out and make another crop circle program, and then they run it for a few years, but they don't know what they're doing. It's not something they're familiar with, and they're swayed by other media, which is trashing it and making it sound ridiculous. And so, and of course, media likes to be a little trashy and salacious and cynical and what have you. So you just get these somebody who really knows about this phenomenon and watches the media that comes out. You just shake your head. It's so pathetic, the kind of job that they do. I mean, even presumably reliable sources, you might say, like I would have thought National Geographic. Well, that's a very prestigious publication. Well, they're the worst. The real researchers won't even talk to them anymore because they distort the information so badly. So.
Oh yeah, and I know there's been stories from them that disappeared too, like how with Atlantean kind of implications and such too. So yeah, it's understandable to be a little wary of them these days.
Yeah, well, the typical scenario is that these programs will interview, I call them researchers, kind of shorthand for everybody who's very involved in this, and the media typically will interview them as if they're really interested, and the people will come away from the interview going, oh, I really told them everything. Boy, this is going to be a good program. And then you watch how they cherry-pick, what they've said, and so some of the researchers just won't talk to these people anymore. They don't trust any of them, except they trust me, because I'm them.
Yeah, definitely. So that works out great for all of us, for sure. So.
Yes.
But actually, one of the questions that I do have, what are some of the methods that they're able to establish if a crop circle is genuine in the fact that we don't know where it came from, and then one that might be a hoax?
Right. Well, of course, that's the first thing. We all go and we get on our knees. We start looking. The most reliable method is not what you do on your knees. It's what you take into the laboratory, but that's expensive. It has been done, fortunately. And, if you're really looking for the definitive proof that you've got a genuine phenomenon here, the auspice that's done all of that, most of that work is BLT, like bacon, lettuce, tomato, research.com, and if you get on their site, it's really quite impressive. There are papers that they've written on these lab studies where there are changes to the biology of the plants and changes to the chemistry of the soil inside crop circles that can't be accounted for. And the papers have been published in peer-reviewed science journals, which is what we consider to be our arbiters of truth. But still nobody's paying attention. Quite extraordinary. But short of doing that, short of having a very expensive study, and they are expensive studies. I mean, these things are done with real scientific protocols. They're not just a little fly-by-night. Take a wheat stalk into a laboratory. They get samples from outside the crop, samples from all over. There's a real scientific protocol that they go through to examine these things. But if you're a visitor and you want an opinion, or you want to investigate yourself, you get on your knees. And the most telltale sign is something we actually show in the movie, and you'll see it very clearly in the movie. The methodology of choice to make a crop circle, for a person to make a hoax crop circle, is with what they call a stomper board. If you can picture a board about 3 feet long, and there are ropes that have bore. They drill a hole in the two ends of the board, and the
Mm-hmm.
ropes come up to your hand, so you have like a triangle, and you stick your foot on the board, and you keep walking, stomp, stomp, stompers they call them, ahead, stomp, stomp, flatten crop, flatten crop, flatten crop. So you have these 3 feet wide depressions in the crop, or that's not the right word, but the crop's knocked over 3 feet
Mm-hmm.
wide, and then the board has left a crease mark. It's not
Mm-hmm.
natural. It's not like in the real phenomenon where something mysterious bends them over and nothing breaks them. They
Mm-hmm.
don't break, in fact, and there's no marks. Some presumable heat has shot up through the shaft and bent it over. Why it doesn't burn it is quite interesting, since it's very hot in order
Mm-hmm.
to do that, and make steam in order to do that. And sometimes you do find, actually another thing you find occasionally are little singe marks. But some mastery of technology's gone on here where somehow or other great heat has not burned the crop, and some of it's in very dry crop.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, they've never gone up in flames. So you're always looking for the crease marks. And as I say, in our movie, we show you very clearly. You see those white marks. And so when you're in a crop circle, when you newly get into a crop circle, you're first thing you're on your hands and knees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the most telltale signs. It used to be that the hoaxed ones had terrible geometry. So you would look at a formation, you go, oh, that's so ugly, or that's so ungeometric,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're hoaxed. But the hoaxers get better and better, so it's getting harder. They can fool us now, and they've gotten good geometers, so they're putting down some pretty nice geometric circles. So we can't rely on that methodology anymore. And then there are other kinds of things, little odd things. Sometimes flies. You will find flies stuck to the crop. Somehow when the energy came, the fly was, whatever it was doing, sucking or whatever flies do on crop, and they get pasted there. And the interesting thing about that is they'll stay there. Those flies are stuck, except if you pick the shaft. And if you pick the shaft, the fly falls off. Now, some biologists will have to tell me why that is. I don't know why, but I know that's what happens.
Wow.
So, there are other little oddball sort of things like that. But
it's kind of cool, actually. I haven't heard that one before. That's really neat.
Yeah, the fly story.
Yeah, that's just like...
Yeah. It's true.
Awesome. That's weird. That's
not
so
in my
cool.
movie. We couldn't put everything in the movie, so that's not in the movie.
Oh, wow. I guess I'll have to be for the sequel then.
You have to do what?
I said that will be for the sequel then, I guess.
For the sequel, right.
Yeah.
Right. We actually also have on the DVD, however, an hour of bonus material, that things we couldn't get into the movie, or things that just weren't the movie. They were just other sorts of things. And the DVD is really wonderful because, it's the kind of thing you'd want to watch over and over. The formations are so beautiful. And we have beautiful, I knew who to go to for really beautiful photography. You can't do it all yourself when you make a crop circle film, because it's been going on for years and you're not there. You're not shooting every day and whatever, and there's a lot of stuff you haven't caught in your own cameras. So you go to, you buy footage. But I knew who to go to, a lot of private people who aren't really doing it commercially, but I knew they took beautiful pictures. And so my film is absolutely full of breathtaking footage of the circles.
Sweet. Very cool. Very cool. And yeah, the designs themselves, I mean, they're immense works of art. I mean, that's one thing that I think everyone can appreciate them as, for sure, is just the design. Well,
indeed. In fact, we have a little section in the movie about circles as art. And we have something funny in there. I guess it's not a spoiler because it's just a little thing, but there's a big prize in England for a modern art prize. And what we show you, the one that won the award the year we were shooting, or the year we happened to be shooting that particular part of it, because we took 6 years to make this movie. But the thing that won the prize was a room you went into with a light bulb that went on and off, and we show you that. I mean, it's kind of weird, modern art is very weird. And here we have these gorgeous artistic creations, and that didn't win any prizes. But indeed, the sophistication of these designs, is more than even just you looking at them and saying, "Oh, that's pretty." You wouldn't know this if you're just looking at them, but they are designed with very, very sophisticated geometry. And part of the reason they appeal to you so much is because of the underlying sacred geometry, and we call it sacred because it is the way the universe is designed. The whole universe is put together along the lines of sacred geometry. If you, for instance, reduced your body to math, the parts of your body, how one part relates to another part, it's all sacred geometry. And plants grow according to sacred geometry. So there's something aesthetically very harmonious about that. And with the geometric formations, they're not all geometric, but the geometric formations are designed that way. And that's part of why, even though you don't know it, they are so aesthetically pleasing. They're very harmonious with the grand master plan, in this glorious universe. So,
yeah, definitely.
That's one thing you can comment on about the artistic beauty of them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's really interesting too, because I know how a lot of people look into the messages of the formations and how they recognize the geometry and how. I know there's a lot of theories saying that they're meant to sort of activate consciousness as well using that geometry too. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, yes, indeed. There is some usage of them, and part of, what you kind of get tuned into when you first start paying attention to the circles is the suggestion that you keep the patterns, not necessarily the photographs, but they all have patterns that have been drawn that are like black and white symbolic symbols, and that you keep them somewhere where you look at them because they'll tune you into their harmony. In fact, one of the people who visits the circles all the time is the head of the some Chinese medical association on the East Coast, and we have him in our bonus material. There was too much noise at the airport to really cut him into the film, but we have him in a piece of the bonus material. A very, very sort of leprechaun who's kind of got a guru air to him, and he's just a wonderful guy. And one of the things he's done is he's taken some of these particular formations and made those patterns, or had gotten those patterns, and he uses them with his patients for particular ailments. So you take a particular formation and you gaze at it and you use it as a healing tool for particular ailments. That's really how potent this harmoniousness is. It's going to tune you back into your harmony. So, that's what's happening. So he knows more than I know about that, so I trust that, that must be true.
Yeah, that is really amazing. I know how there's a lot of new technology, and I guess you can say harmonic technology. I guess it might fall into that category in terms of some of these effects. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me. That's really cool. I know a lot of people report having, feeling different sensations when they're in the formations themselves too.
Well, that too. There have also been some stories of real healings. In fact, we have one in the movie that's so unbelievable that if it hadn't been told to me by someone I deeply know and respect, one of my main crop circle cohorts who took part in this particular situation, I never would have believed it. I would have thought, blowing smoke, what kind of crazy story is that? But because I knew the source, and the source wasn't telling me a third-hand story, he had participated, he'd been there, he was part of what was going on. And shall I tell you, is it going to be a spoiler if I tell people what this was? I'll tell you what it was. It's just a little All right, so here's what happened. It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And we hear things that are as far-fetched as this occasionally. It's not like Lourdes. You wouldn't want to go there and expect a miracle healing. But we do have these very odd, occasional situations. So here's what happened. This person was driven to a crop circle, in a wheelchair, got out of the car, took her wheelchair out of the car, and my friend was one of the people who's a crop circle researcher, was one of the people who carried the wheelchair to the crop circle with her in it.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so they put her down, and she in the circle, and she gets out of the wheelchair. She had not been out of the wheelchair for years. I mean, this just sounds ridiculous.
Huh.
She
Wow.
gets out of the wheelchair. She walks around. My friend is one of the people carrying the wheelchair back to the car without her in it because she walked back to the car.
Wow.
Now, I didn't put the whole story in because I thought, people are never going to believe this. He said she was kind of running around in the circle. Oh, my God. I mean, what?
Cool.
But I just, this guy would not have told me something that wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So there it is. You'll see it in my movie.
Wow,
Won't
that's
see
amazing.
it, but you'll hear it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool to hear stories like that, because I think stories like that, like how I say in general, a lot of these subjects they bring wonder back to this existence that that they've been trying to breed out of us, shall we say? So that's really cool hearing those stories, even though they're just if we hear them secondhand, it's still really cool.
Yeah, this wonder idea, that's a lovely idea, actually. We're so materialistic and we're so fact-driven, but these kind of magical things open our minds, to other things, and it's so good for us to kind of be in that receptive, curious kind of state rather than knowing it all and being closed down, where nothing new can get in.
Yeah.
So I like the circles for that. They keep us wondering, and I think that's a real virtue of the whole phenomenon. We're in touch with something we can't explain. We so like to explain everything, but it's good for us not to know all the answers.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of something we don't necessarily know all the answers on, I had a question in the chat room about the magnetic charges and the particles and such that are at some of these sites. Is there any more insight you can maybe share into that?
Well, some of the findings that they've had with there are magnetic particles that are found in crop circles, but more interesting even, which cable station did the program where they sent the MIT students out to replicate a crop circle, and they were given protocols. This is what happens in a real one. Can you do it? And I can't remember, was it Discovery, whatever it was. So
Discovery Channel.
They did what they did, and with the magnetic particles, they got some kind of blower, and they just blew them all over the ground, and, they had magnetic. Well, that wasn't the protocol. The protocol to replicate what really happens is that if you were, let's say, in a more or less round one, because that's where you can see how this would work, because some of them are freeform, but if you were in a more or less round one, as you would get further and further from the center, you would have different what do we call it, heaviness, or I need a word here. The particles would get, more or less as you went out. I can't remember if they were closer to the center, there were more of them, but in, concentric rings, you would find less and less, I think it was less and less particles as you would go out from the center, and the center was the place that had the greatest, I'm short of my word here. Greatest depth, greatest concentration. That's my word. Yeah. The greatest concentration of magnetic particles. Well, that they did. The MIT students didn't, they didn't bother with that. They just kind of blew this stuff all over the circle. I think they actually had a big machine to do it. And I thought, oh yeah, right. This is just the way the real, this is showing us the way people can make these things. But hey, nobody, catches people out there with machines, and that's the way they all were made. We all would know, we all would have caught all these people doing this, but they were so funny. They were so, and people will still say, oh, those MIT students, they made one. They made one. Right, they made something, but they didn't make anything that was like the, the real thing. They made kind of stupid facsimiles,
That's one thing I tend to point out to people too, and in terms of skeptical rebuttals, it's kind of like just because you can reproduce something doesn't mean it was reproduced in the same method, that and with that theory.
Well, so, even if you could make an exact replica, it's still a replica. And the way I think about it is like you see these artists with easels set up in museums, and they're copying Rembrandt, and maybe they do it really well. they're not Rembrandts. They're
exactly.
copies, you know.
Yep.
So I think that's an analogy that kind of holds, no matter how good the hoaxer is, because as I say, they've gotten better and better over the years. They're making some pretty good-looking ones now.
Oh,
but
yeah.
They're not the real thing. They're still hoaxed.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually watching another documentary before where they're talking to some of the hoaxers, and I guess some of them were actually from one of the more well-known websites too, because they wanted to do like a controlled study in a sense. And but I remember in that account they're saying even when they were hoaxing that they were sometimes getting chased out by orbs, or that they would come back and their formation was like cleaned up for them, things like that. So
well, there are funny things. Yeah, there are funny things like that they don't finish, and then the next day it's finished, and wait a minute, we didn't do that, or things like that.
Yeah.
But there's another thing that they say, which people have now started to say, which I think is rather bizarre. But there's a kind of an idea out there that, even the hoaxers are being inspired by, God or the universe, or, the real thing is inspiring them. And I think these cheats, these nefarious characters who go on chat rooms and start really attacking all the real, researchers and try to be spoilers and try to fool everybody. Sure, God is going to whisper in their ear. I don't think so. That would be very strange. But they say that they say that we get this energy and we're affected by it and it inspires us, and I don't think so.
Yeah, that's because it really does help to muddy things up. I know there's something to be said for having to discern the real from the fake, but it doesn't necessarily help all that much. Well,
you know what it does do in discerning the real from the fake is it makes the observer sharper, and it's not like a piece of cake. You have to really study and go to links, and then, of course, once you've done that, you've really delved into it, and you really own your answers. You really own the knowledge that you've gotten, as opposed to it being sort of simple and handed to you. And there's a much more sort of profound experience when you've earned your truth. You possess it in a much more, genuine kind of impressive kind of way. And I think, maybe that's all part of it, too, in the Grand Master Plan. Make these people work for it, because then they've really got it, So whatever, we have to take it the way it is.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing is interesting too that I had heard in some other research about even the host crop formations, like how because of if they use specific geometry like that the sacred geometry that still duplicates some of the energetic anomalies. I don't know if you've ran into that too.
Well, I don't know. Well, I'm telling you, they're making good geometry now. They are doing that, and what energetic elements? All I know is that they can make a good pattern now, but I don't know what else there would be to say about a similarity between the real ones and the hoax ones. It's certainly the kinds of things where there's a lot of effect on electromagnetic equipment, cameras, batteries will drain. You've got a brand new fresh battery. You're in a circle. We have somebody on the film saying, "I just came in here. My battery was fine. It's drained."
Oh wow.
Or cell phones don't work. We do something there where somebody's walking around the whole formation with a cell phone and he pulls it in to the formation. It's not working. He holds it out over the edge and the standing crop. It's working.
Wow.
So some electromagnetic force is activated or sucking energy inside the formations. That's another way you're in a real one. But of course, it doesn't happen all the time. But it happens a lot. It interferes with cameras, not the mechanical parts, but the electrical parts. So definitely. That's another category, and we actually have a fair amount of little anecdotes about that or reports about that in the movie. Tell them again, in case people come and go to cropcirclemovie.com, where you'll see the trailer for this movie, and you'll see me, and you'll get an irresistible offer to buy it with all kinds of bonuses. We'll pay you. No, not quite. Anyway, cropcirclemovie.com. And there's one other site I would send people to, which is my blog, where you can sign up for my mailing list. All we're doing on cropcirclemovie.com is talking about the DVD. But I like to collect the most interesting stories and then write some reflective pieces about them, about, how we're going to change the world and why this piece is important. And my blog is theconversation.org, and you can sign up for my mailing list there. So I highly recommend that, theconversation.org, and sign up for the mailing list.
Yeah, great. And I go ahead and posted those for you in our chat room, too. And those will be on our website as well. So
good, very good, very good.
Yeah, I guess one of the other things I was wondering, so in terms of genuine crop formations versus hoax ones, the bending of the nodes, is that a
Oh, that is another thing. Yes, I should have actually immediately thought of that, because that's a big one. In the genuine circles, as opposed to the crease marks, which are where the board has stomped it down, you get these unnatural bends, and they bend at the nodal points. The grain crops are put together in sections and they're held together by nodes, and so in green crop, your nodes will just elongate and stretch. There's a lot of plasticity to it, and in fact, the crop will continue to grow. Phototropism will take over, and even though it's bent over at a right angle, where the end of the bend is, will turn back up to the sun and continue to grow, and the plant is not damaged at all. In the dry crop, there's no bend left, there's no elasticity left, and so when the force goes up through the shaft, which they think is microwave energy that's somehow been harnessed, when the force goes up through the shaft, the node can't bend, it's too brittle, and so we get what we call blown nodes. They get holes in them, and we actually show you that in the movie. You'll see pictures of the blown nodes. But again, those are the things you look for. In green crop, you'll look for these artificial, you might say, bends, and in the dry crop, you look for blown nodes, and those are signs also you're in a genuine formation.
That's neat. And I know some of the theories that talk about the groundwater, the aquifers that tend to be associated with these formations.
Yes, if you plot these on a map and you see where they are in England, which is the hot spot, you will see that they cluster around this aquifer that runs across southern England. The crop circles are on that, and I think that has to do with the water underneath as a conductor for electromagnetism, and that would seem to be why the crop circles land there. I don't know that it's a necessary component, but it certainly is an attraction, and there are a lot of crop circles that seem to be related to this water table.
Huh. That's intriguing.
And then limestone, is a great conductor of, I think, electromagnetism or water. I'm not a scientist, so I'm a little bit third hand here to tell you these stories. But in that same area with the aquifer, there's limestone right under the surface of the soil. In fact, those white horses in England are white because when you cut away the grass on the surface or whatever the overlay is of vegetation, you'll get to white limestone. And those white horses, there's one of them that's actually more like a dragon. That's the age of Stonehenge and inexplicable. But in England, they got the idea that this could be artwork, and over the years, some of them are hundreds of years old, but they were commissioned. They were actually made by, we know they were made by people, but they're considered treasures of England. They have those plaques by them that tell you when the thing was made, and then the National Heritage over there maintains them, and they're tourist attractions over there, and they're quite beautiful. They're on the sides of hills where you can see them as you drive down the country roads, and the crop circles tend to cluster around them. The crop circles like those. That seems to be a kind of a draw for one of the likely landing places for crop circles. Underneath the white horses, you always can say, oh, we'll probably get some bunch of crop circles each year by the white horses. And you know, one of the things, I don't think we've talked about this, in terms of the landing places for them, they do tend to land near something ancient, sacred, you might say, and that's all over the world. In America, where we have a smatter of them, and you know, actually, if you go into the literature, you'd be surprised at how many we've had over the years. It's in the hundreds. But lately we haven't had any, so, you know, it's kind of like, what happened? I don't know. Or at least none that have been reported. You know, it could be that on the, we have so many factory farms, and conceivably when their harvests are going on, they discover them, but, you know, it's not like in England, which is this little contained area with planes flying overhead, private aviation all day long, and so they do get reported. Now wait a minute. I think I've diverted 3 times from the point I was making. Where were we? Let me track back. Limestone. No. Sacred sites. Yeah. So they do tend to land near something ancient, and you know, if you say, well, I wonder why they're doing that. You know, we're in speculation here until they tell us why they're doing things. We can only speculate. But it would seem to us that is kind of to draw us back to a time when we considered ourselves and everything to be sacred. We were part of nature. We hadn't split off into this material versus spiritual kind of world. And it's what we need to get back to. We need to spiritualize our lives. We need to get out of this concentration on the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, or else the world's going to fall apart, as it seems to be perhaps doing. And the crop circles are perhaps just calling us back, reminding us, you know, landing in our elemental food product, you know, and landing near these ancient sacred things. I mean, it's like a, you know, kind of a milieu that takes us to a more holistic kind of place to be that we really need to return to or come into if we're even going to survive. You know, these are urgent times, and you know, the crop circles are beautiful and lovely and whatever, but I feel a sense of urgency. I mean, it's why I didn't go on the festival circuit with the film, which takes a long time, and you work your film and you do all your what would we say, your commercial kinds of things to make the film do what it's supposed to do. Well, no, I didn't. I mean, I don't want to lose money on it, but I also want to get the word out. I didn't want to meander along and, you know, do all these kinds of commercial sort of serve the film in that way. And so I wanted to, you know, just get it out to the public. And so we launched a very intense internet marketing campaign, which we're in the world where you can do that sort of thing now. And it wasn't not casual. It had a lot of smart marketing to it. But I wanted to get this thing out quickly, and I've gone around with the film. I've gone to conferences, and, you know, I'm trying to bring it to people quickly because, you know, the world's in trouble. So anything that really could make a difference, you know, I felt I had that thing in my hand. And so I've been, you know, working with it very intensely, trying to get it out. In fact, I should also mention that the film is going to be in New York for a week in the end of April. And if any of your listeners have any media contacts or what have you, we're going to play for a week at a beautiful, wonderful art house in New York called the Quad Cinema. And so that's a very exciting sort of development. We are presumably going to get reviewed in the New York Times, which is going to bring the film to a kind of new level of respect by the public. So anybody listening here who can, you know, expose me to any places I can speak in New York or any ways I can get media attention, I'm putting that word out these days also.
Yeah, great. I'm sure there'll be quite a few people listening eventually here in the archives too, and so I might be able to make some connections there for you.
Yes, so. I'm looking for that. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
New York, here I come. That's where I come from.
Yeah, that should be fun.
I came to California from New York a lot of years ago.
Yeah. So going back to old stomping grounds.
Really, I love New York. I was an actress, you know, and although I never was on Broadway because I was married before Women's Lib and my husband wouldn't have stood for it, I actually ended up making a lot of television commercials because I could sneak out for a day and do those. They didn't take me away from my wifely duties very much. But when I lived in New York, there were years there where I'd seen everything on Broadway. It wasn't a show I hadn't seen. I just loved the theater.
Cool.
All I ever wanted to be when I was a little girl was an actress. I thought, wow, everything else looks so boring. Really. Well, it's kind of what got me into this interest in more than you can see, because when you're an actress, and particularly like a method actress, you're always looking inside yourself for things that are not so obvious, for the life the disowned selves that you didn't express, and you're looking beneath the surface to do your work, and so that got me kind of tuned in to the fact that there was more to life than just this little exterior show and of material reality. So that was my entree into otherness.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize about when one's serious about acting, how it's like you're training to kind of shift your ego, you can say, so you kind of learn how to detach a little bit there.
Oh, absolutely, and very therapeutic in a way. When the human potential movement came along and I saw these therapeutic modalities, I thought, God, everybody should go to acting class instead of talking to therapists. It's a lot more fun, more interesting, but, kind of the same thing. You're just delving deeper into what life is all about. So that was a good background for me, launching pad for me into all the things that I'm interested in now, which is consciousness, really. I mean, the reason I'm interested in the circles is because it's changing. They can change our awareness. They can, change the way we think about things. So.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I was wondering too, if you or anyone you know has ever witnessed any of these formations being made.
Yes, in fact, one of the main researchers and the one who runs BLT research, she's T in BLT, Nancy Talbot. And again, you love it when people you really trust have had experiences. I haven't seen it, but she did, so I know, she's not making up a story because I know Nancy. And she actually has a story, and if you get on bltresearch.com, I think her story is there somewhere, of where these shafts of light came down, and then, she ran out into the field, and, oh, my God, there was a circle right, outside her bedroom in the Netherlands. This was an experience in the Netherlands. And but there have been, not sure how many, as of the dissolution of the Center for Crop Circle Studies, which dissolved really because of the hoaxing thing and because there was so much animosity and argument and whatever, they couldn't hold the organization together. And it was a wonderful receptacle where anybody could report things. They would collect all the information. It was a resource. They sure could use something like that now, but they've never reorganized to create a unified kind of, guild or any kind of place that would speak for the circles or that would have, a way to amass information about them. But while they were in existence, it was a place to file all reports. And they had, I think, about 25 reports on people who had seen crop circles forming, eyewitnesses, and they all said the same thing. And then we've had, since then, Nancy's experiences since then, and I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 since then, but they had 25 up until the early 90s. And they all said approximately the same thing. None of them saw any craft, which you might expect. Well, is it coming from UFOs? Well, no. But if they were invisible. But I hear that UFOs might be able to do that. They may be able to shapeshift or something.
Yeah, maybe.
At any rate, nobody ever saw a UFO. But what they did see were lights, a lot of lights, and a lot of air turbulence, like before the circle formed. The air would be very strange and a lot of windy stuff and turbulent kind of stuff. Animals in the neighborhood would go quite crazy, cows and, whatever noises animals make, and horses and what have you, because you're in farm country. And And then they all say the same thing, which is the most interesting part of all, that the formations go down in 6 or 7 seconds. They're watching and they just go down. In the film, we have a little simulation of that. It's not the real thing. Somebody made a very clever animation of it. You can see a circle crop just swirling down. But isn't that interesting that they, because we always talk about the fact that there's only, 4 or 5 hours of darkness. In England, they're closer to the North Pole than we are. And, how can these complicated formations be made in such a short time? Well, they're made in a much shorter time. The real ones, they're made in 6 or 7 seconds. So, you wake up in the morning and there it is, but it didn't take 4 hours. It took 6 or 7 seconds. Yeah. So that's what they all say. So, power of numbers. Wow. Nobody's ever caught it on film, though. There is a film that is just all over YouTube of several balls of light swirling around, and then this swirly thing happens in the field quickly where this formation goes down. But that was done in a lab. It took them a long time to analyze it, and there's still some holdouts who insist, no, it's for real. But the predominant opinion is that was done in a lab, and that we don't have, if you think about it, when something's going to go down in 6 or 7 seconds, you don't have time to set up your camera, so to speak. It's too fast. It's over. And what was that? So they take a picture of it afterwards, but nobody's ever caught it actually in process of going down.
Interesting, but everyone
we keep waiting for that. We keep hoping for that. We were very disappointed when we discovered that was a lab trick, because it got a lot of attention and still does. Still people are convinced that and excited. Oh yeah, I can see a crop circle go down. No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So everyone seems to. So you're saying that a lot of people report seeing columns of light though when they have witnessed it.
Yeah, columns of light or flashes of light. Yeah, Nancy saw columns, these shafts of light, intensely shooting down from on high.
Yeah, that's really cool still too. I know it'd be great one day to be like someone to catch that on film for sure. Yeah.
Well, we're all waiting, we keep hoping. But the funny thing is they had a couple of watches that were sponsored by very credible television, BBC, Japanese television. In the early years, they set up watches on what they consider to be likely fields. There are a couple of fields that get them all the time. And they set up watches that lasted for a couple of weeks, actually. And then there are funny stories that came out of them, like the day that after the watch was disbanded, a crop circle. Or another story about them was that a mist came down, and when the mist lifted, there was a crop circle, despite the fact that the motion sensors hadn't gone off, But it's like, if they're watching us and we're trying to catch them, ha, ha, ha. They can do whatever they want. They'll wait for us to go away, or they send one in when a mist comes down.
Exactly.
It's almost also, and we mentioned this in the movie, like they have a sense of humor. It's like they don't do. It's not like malicious that they're doing that. It's just like, ha ha ha, you can't catch us, and they're like winking at us,
Yeah.
So we always like those kind of funny little stories, but catching them, people come to me. Certain amount of, I get ideas that people come to me with, or proposals. They want to do a project. They want to mount, again, some kind of watches, and they're going to do it over 50 fields, and they're going to put a satellite, and they're going to blah, blah, blah. And I keep saying, well, first of all, you don't know where they're going to come, but second of all, it seems like they're under intelligent control. If you're going to try to catch them, they're not going to cooperate with you. You're just going to waste your money, But people still have some idea that, they're going to trap them or something. I think, this is so ridiculous. So it hasn't happened. So.
Yeah, that's funny that you're saying that it's almost like a joke, or there's joking going on, especially if it's like 6 or 7 seconds. Like someone could literally just turn around and be like,
exactly.
Oh, damn it.
Exactly. Right. Right.
Yeah. That's funny. Cause that was the other thing I was thinking too, because you figure something that's been able to dodge attention for all these years. It's like if you set up in a field with a couple, whatever amount of cameras, somehow I think that they might be able to slip through there too. So.
Really. Well, they seem to be able to do whatever they want. So if they want to get caught, they'll, wait for somebody who has a camera pointed and at a field. People take pictures all the time, and they'll say, "Oh, there's a camera pointed. Let's go under it." So,
exactly.
they can catch us. But it doesn't seem to happen that way.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't done that yet. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe. We're waiting for them to all of a sudden, all over the world, or even in England, just deliver 100 of them at once. We mentioned in the film there was one year when 35 of them came in one night in England.
Wow.
But it's never happened again, and it was in the early years. As if, then that there's a real, they could do things that would definitively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, land hundreds of them in one night. Well, then you have a real phenomenon. But maybe they don't want to do anything that startling. That's kind of, typical question. Why don't they land on the White House lawn? Why don't they, for heaven's sakes? Well, I guess they don't want to. I guess that might be abrasive. I guess that might be hitting us over the head, where what they want us to do is really realize and discover and understand in our own minds that we figured it out, that, oh, my God, we can't be making these. And we have other intelligence with us. And once you kind of figure it out, you own it in a kind of a way that it's part of you and not just imposed on you by, the insistence that you recognize it, which seems not the way a sort of enlightened auspice would be doing it. Much more gentle and powerful, actually, to have our minds come to realizations, So I think they're drawing us out so that we do open our minds and we do get wiser and smarter, which is good for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people appreciate a fun educational challenge too. So why not? But we are at the top of the hour here, so we usually take a break.
Blabbed on for an hour, for heaven's sakes.
Hey, it goes by quick when you got great information going on.
Really?
So,
you get all my secrets here, all my tricks.
Well, I'm sure that's not possible even in 2 hours. So, but we'll go ahead and take a little break here. Allow everyone to have a bathroom break, a glass of water or something, and then we'll come back.
Catch up on email.
Yeah, or go ahead and go purchase Susan's.
Yes. In this break, go to cropcirclemovie.com. See the trailer, see me, get impressed, and then you go to theconversation.org and sign up for my mailing list. You will not be sorry. I send out fascinating email. You can always get off it. You always say unsubscribe, and then you're gone. But people don't tend to do that because they like being on my mailing list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I made my pitch. Right. Okay, you can take your break.
No worries.
How long are we going to be gone for?
Oh, it'll be about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So, all right, everyone. So go do your thing. Ready, set, go.
Got to stay.
Car 55 for such a beautiful song that you got there with Mother Earth, and it's one of our favorites here for sure. And that time for change is now, and that's why we're here, making a change little by little, and that's what our great guest today, Suzanne Taylor, is doing in her own way, shouting it loud to the world with her movie, What on Earth. It's great to have you back here, Susan. So.
Well, onward. What other fascinating things can we find to tell everybody?
Oh yeah, there's this, like I said, there's obviously been thousands of formations over the years, and all kinds of information in there, and that's actually one of the things I like to get into, because there's a couple of mine that are favorites, not necessarily just for their aesthetics, but some of the messages too. Like I was wondering your thoughts on the formation of, I don't really know what it's called, but I've kind of seen it commonly seen it referenced as the Beware Bearers of Broken Promises formation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's that alien face holding a disc, and the disc has binary code in it. I mean, it's so funny in wheat, binary code in wheat. I mean, if you're in this thing, you get all these little squiggly little ups and downs. What in the world is this? But then you get an aerial of it, and people who are smarter about that sort of thing than me say, "Oh, they translated." It's happened a few times when there's been binary code in a formation, and the translation of that one, it's a very mysterious one. Some of the phenomenon, some of the circles are you might call them pattern groups. Like there have been a lot that have played around with the idea of fractals and their interference patterns and 3D effects, and a lot of circles will demonstrate these various kinds of attributes. But then there are unique circles. There's never been another one like it, just one of a kind, and that's a one of a kind. A clear alien face that looks like typically the grays that we portray in our science fiction, and it's holding this disc with this binary code message in it, and you've quoted some of the accurate message. I don't have it in my head, but it is watch out, be careful.
Yeah, I actually do
time,
have Yeah, I actually do have the translation.
Go ahead, read it if you've got it in front of you.
It's beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain still, there's a damaged word, and there is good out there. We oppose deception, conduit closing, bell sound.
Yeah, that's sort of trippy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely mysterious.
Right, and one of the other interesting things about that formation that has not appeared in any other one is how it was designed in terms of the way the crop was manipulated. It is done in I don't know what the name for it is, but the way television is, it's all horizontal line, and by how thick the lines are, like if you put a magnifying glass on television, you'd see it's all line. Just like on newspapers, it's dot matrix. So if you put a magnifying glass on newsprint, it's all dots, big dots, little dots, and that's what makes what you can see. And you have to magnify it way up to see that, but nonetheless, that is the construct. And so in this one, we've had one like that too, but in this particular one, it's all the way television is with these horizontal lines, and they've never had another one like that. Very fascinating, actually. And from on the ground, you could see the lines. Oh, what are all these lines? Some are shorter, some are longer, whatever. But then you get above it, and they all kind of blend together into a shape. So that was quite an unusual one. There is some controversy about whether it's hoaxed or not. The one that is dot matrix, there's no controversy about. There's nobody saying it might be hoaxed. But that one, they still don't seem to have stopped arguing about it. So I don't know myself what the story is on that one.
Yeah, that's definitely an intriguing one. That's why I was so curious to hear your thoughts on that, because that definitely is a unique one in a lot of ways. So
it is, and people, with that alien face, a little kind of I don't know about in some ways we don't really identify the circles with the whole E.T. thing or the UFO thing. We don't know where they come from. Maybe they come from another dimension.
Yeah.
Maybe they come from the future. I mean, these are things, ideas that people have, nature, whatever.
Yeah.
Not necessarily E.T. I mean, we make up, the idea of E.T. as a lot of it is our science fiction, and is not necessarily the source of the circles. You don't know really where they are coming from, but that particular one is so much E.T., and it's, I don't know. Do I want to get drawn into that world or be identified with that world so clearly? And so, I didn't put that one in my movie at all. I just thought, well, we're not really sure it's real, and it's got that kind of uniquely E.T. characteristic about it, the grays, and so I just didn't put it in. We can't have everything in the movie, so.
Oh yeah.
But the other one is in the movie. The one with the dot matrix is in the movie, but we don't talk about it because the story is too long. So maybe we can talk about that one on the air here.
Yeah.
That was in the same field within a few days landing, apart, a few days apart, with the one they call the message. You know which one I'm talking about? The dot matrix one is the face. It looks like the face on Mars.
Oh, okay, yeah, I do know that one. Okay.
Okay, so that's all done with dot matrix. That's all dots. I mean, it's quite something on the ground. You see, you clearly, as opposed to binary code that kind of squiggles, here you see these round dots. And when you're on the ground, you go, what in the world is this? Little dots, big dots, and then, of course, you get above it, and you see that it has that sense of being a face, and it does look like the face on Mars. So I don't know, is it us, is it them? I don't know. I mean, what are they portraying? Not sure. But then, right in the same field, quite near it, possibly the most interesting crop circle of all arrived in 2001, same year as the dot matrix, obviously. They arrived just a few days apart. And if I had endless time in my movie and put in everything that interests me, I would have put that in. But it was too long a story to tell, and, you just really got a limited time in a movie. And it would have had to have eliminated too many other things. But I do like that one because it's so fascinating, and it's a unique. There never has been anything like it. But it's in a rectangle, and it has very carefully encoded information in it that's replicating something that Carl Sagan had a hand in designing. Again, I believe it's binary code. It's not exactly my specialty, but I think that it is. And it was in 1976 that Carl Sagan helped design this message to send out into space in radio waves, and it was those kind of capsules they bury with little examples of life on Earth. Well, this was a radio message with what is life on Earth all about, and it included some very primary information. It had our table of elements. It had the fact that how many planets are in our solar system. We are the third planet from the sun, and we're the inhabited planet. And there was a little figure in it of a human, whatever the proportion of that was. They could tell 5'10" or whatever the average human was, so that if this message was ever received, people could decipher it and know what the content was, and then you could actually take that radio wave message and translate it into something on paper. It came into something that could be replicated or demonstrated on paper. So we have this paper example, this drawing of what it is that was in that message that went out, and it wasn't really designed to be really received, although, who knows what goes on over billions of years, whatever. But it would take 200 and some odd years for it to even get anywhere where there was a planet. It was just going to go through empty space for 200 and some odd years. Well, that was 1976, and in 2001, we received in this field, right next to this dot matrix space, we received exactly the same structure, the same rectangle, with the same content fields. Like there was a table of elements, there was a figure that was, but this time it was who they were, not who we are. So we are carbon-based. They are silicon-based, according to this thing that we got back. They have, I can't remember how many planets in their solar system, but 3 of them are inhabited. Their little figure, which actually looked a little sort of like like E.T., like what we think of as E.T., is 3 feet tall with a big head. And there were several other elements in it that were all paralleling the message that went out, only the message that came in was as if it was their information and not our information. I was one of the first people in that formation. I was in that one, standing outside of it with my cell phone, calling everyone else, saying, you got to get here. Now, look, you go down this road, you go under the barbed wire, then you climb a fence, then you...
That's real simple.
It was near England's biggest radio telescope, which is comparable to the being sent out from... that message was sent out to commemorate the building of the largest radio telescope in the world in 1976. It was Arecibo, Puerto Rico, that it went out from, and it came in near the biggest radio telescope in England. It has a name. In fact, they call the crop circle by this, and I'm spacing it right now. It doesn't really matter, but whatever.
SETI response, right? Is that what that's this one that's called?
Say again.
This is the one that's commonly referred to as SETI response, right?
Well, no, that's not what it's called. It's not called the SETI response. It's called the message usually. But SETI did have a response to it, which I'll tell you that, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's kind of part of the overall story. So here's what, and for your listeners, if they don't know, SETI is our official. It was official. It was funded by the government. Now it's privately funded. Search for extraterrestrial intelligence, where they're sending radio waves out because they presume that that's the universal language, and if anything is out there and gets this radio wave, they'll know that an intelligent source is sending it, and we'll be able to make some contact that way. Well, there's a lot of criticism of that that's a real sham, and that you have such a teeny band of the universe that it's really reaching, that it's highly illogical, blah, 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 and that, people in the know are quite critical of this as being the show of our interest in matters like this. But in fact, we have a lot of disinformation going on that's actually keeping real information from the public, and you can see that lately, particularly lately, in all these figures coming forth from government and the military telling you about the suppressed information about how real this extraterrestrial reality is. But at any rate, SETI, when this formation arrived in this crop field, had a response. And SETI said, oh, no, that couldn't be real, because if whoever they are, they wanted to respond, if there was other intelligence, they wouldn't do it in a crop field, they'd do it in a radio message, radio waves.
Of course.
Oh, really? So we know what they would do, right? We got them scoped out, don't we? I mean, it was the most ridiculous response, but that is what how SETI responded, so there you go.
Yeah, and isn't there also, I can't remember which researcher was talking about this, but I believe they said that there was cameras in that field too, and they didn't catch anything as well.
No, that's other stuff. That was back to those experiments that I told you about, those watches that I told you about, where motion sensors didn't catch anything, and all these camera mounts, and and then when they left, a circle appeared. So that would be more of a story that relates to that, and that was the very early 90s. That was 10 years before this particular thing. When that happened, when we got that message, I made a bet, actually, and fortunately nobody held me to it, because that arrived a week or two after the largest formation ever at a place called Milk Hill, and it's this huge, it was the size of 2 football fields, if you can imagine that, 409 separate little circles making up this pattern of 6 separate arms with all these little dots all over, a very beautiful pattern. And that being the largest one that ever arrived, whenever something unique happens, the press comes. the phenomenon itself just going on year after year, making beautiful things, whatever, they don't consider that particularly unique, and there's no reason to cover it. But when something different happens, different enough that they consider different enough, the press will pick up on it, and sometimes. And they picked up on this largest one ever. CNN was there. This was 2001. So when this message came in, 2 weeks later, I, fool that I was, said, I will bet everything I own that this is going to bust it open for the world. Now this, on top of this last one, now we're going to really be in headlines. Everybody's going to know that visitation is taking place. Well, it made not a buzz, none whatsoever. You never read anything about it in the press. I don't know, except Gossetti kind of squashed it. Oh, no, don't pay attention to this, nothing to it. I think that possibly that's why it was, ignored. The official word was nothing going on here. And so that was the end of that.
Yeah. Do you think that's...
the person did not hold me to my bet that I bet everything I owned.
Well, that's good. That's definitely good.
That was good. That was good.
So do you think that that's the main reason why people don't care? Is just because, the main media or authorities say, oh, don't worry about that thing? Or do you think it goes
definitely. I mean, your media is really your lens. That's what you see through. And, it's hard to get beyond the media, and somehow we've never had any celebrities that have gotten involved. They can tell a different story and say, hey, pay attention. All of a sudden the world pays attention. But we haven't had anything to counter this media stupidity. And, so we just kind of struggle along, tearing our hair out, wondering, and I make movies. Say, come on, I've got to get this information out there. This is ridiculous. This can really matter to the world. So, I really invite all help, anybody who can help me in any way. This is a good cause. It's not just a product I'm trying to sell, although I don't mind selling my DVDs because then I have more money to do my missionary work here.
Yeah.
But this can really matter. And, in a way, also, the media is missing the boat. They're so stupid, forgive me. But anyway, forgive me for being judgmental. But
it's okay.
The truth is that if it turned, and the rationale for why the media discounts it and really doesn't pay attention and doesn't really do research and really tell true stories when they're telling stories at all, the few they do tell, is the idea that, oh, no, people are making all of those. There's nothing to it. Well, wait a minute. If people are making all of them, that's a fabulous story. How have people been able to do this year after year? Hundreds, thousands of instances all over the world. Nobody ever caught quite some trickiness to do these things.
Yeah.
And don't you think if that would be one of the most incredible perpetrations by humanity ever to hit the planet? And that would be a fabulous story. So, that's part of what I kind of talk about to try to really interest the media in paying attention to this thing, serious attention to it.
Yeah. That's a good angle. I mean, that's
it
saying
really is, isn't it?
Oh yeah, because that's saying I come out with people on extraterrestrials, on psychic function. It's kind of like, well, if everyone's sharing this delusion, that's even a more fantastic story.
Exactly. There are other angles to the story that make it a story, and then if they really paid attention, they'd get their minds blown. But even if they didn't think their minds were going to get blown, but by weirdness, but by how do people manage to pull this off? They're just really short-sighted in not paying more attention to this. Have you been watching, by the way, that series on the History Channel? I hear it's just gotten picked up for a third season called Ancient Aliens. I haven't been able to catch all of them, but yeah, I'm familiar with the series. Well, I was on the first season, being one of their crop circle experts, but I was totally impressed by that series, which got very little buzz. You didn't hear much about it. Yeah. But they were very well done, and they were pointing to all the things that are impossible, and yet there they are. We didn't have the technology whenever, whatever. I mean, look at the pyramids as the most obvious example. We all know about that. But this was hours and hours of things that, above and beyond the pyramids or different from the pyramids, in addition to the pyramids, that were just unbelievable. How could that have been? And, the answer to how it could have been, there's a couple of aspects to it. One answer to how it could have been is that we had help. We had help from elsewhere that was more advanced than we were to create these things that we couldn't create. And then there's another aspect to it, which is, I don't know if you might characterize it as a sort of Atlantis thing, but there is lots of evidence that when we had our ice age, there was civilization that was quite sophisticated that got buried, and it's way beneath the oceans now. And there's a little poking that's been going on, probing that's been going on, finding this astonishing stuff under the oceans. It really hasn't been investigated or excavated or whatever they do under the ocean. Are you turned on to Graham Hancock at all?
Yeah.
Well, he's been doing a lot of diving all over the world. He's the most fabulous person. He's one of the most interesting people talking today. He was in Ancient Aliens, but in addition, he's his own person, and I just love listening to him. Get on GrahamHancock.com, I think, and he's got a lot of stuff you can listen to. Put it on your iPod or whatever. And he is a fascinating person who, oh, God, I just love him for how smart he is, for how passionate he is, and how one of the things, he's a writer mostly, but, you'd hardly know, except if you listen to him, that he dives. And he's been diving all over the world, and he talks a lot about what happened during the Ice Age. But he's my favorite person on the circuit today. And I do, if you get on theconversation.org and do a search, that's my blog, theconversation.org. So after you sign up for the mailing list, you do a search for Graham Hancock, and you'll find the pieces I've posted, and you'll be able to listen to him. He's my number one of people to pay attention to these days.
Very cool.
My endorsement. He has my endorsement.
Yeah, definitely. We're hoping to maybe have him as a guest too one day as well. So.
Well, he's in England now. He's exhausted from his book tour, which he just wrote his first novel after writing a couple of fabulous books. Supernatural was the one before this, and that's a whole other story of his work with ayahuasca and what he discovered about other dimensions and how real they are. That the same symbology that you get to when you ingest this South American vine potion, the same symbology that you get to there is the symbology in cave paintings from 30,000 BC. And so there's another realm somewhere that's quote-unquote real that you get to because the shamans were the ones who did the cave paintings, and they were doing substance as well, or however they got into their shamanic state. And, he talks about the reality of another dimension. I mean, maybe that's where the crop circles are coming from. But he's very compelling, very interesting about all of that stuff. And his book before that was Fingerprints of the Gods, I think it was called. It has one title in England and a different one here. I'm not sure what they were. But that was all about the pyramids and how they're dated wrong. And if you look at the astrological alignments, they're 10,000 years older than what we have ascribed them to or some such. So he's a really fascinating guy. He's done the most interesting research, and he's a lovely guy as well, very interesting to listen to, and cute. Very handsome guy, so that's my woman talking. Unfortunately,
that's cool.
He's happily married, I'm sorry to say in some way, but...
you always have the pictures and videos, so...
Oh, he's so attractive, really. Oh, Graham, I love you, wherever you are.
That's awesome. We're all about the love here at UT, so it's all good.
all good.
But actually, there's a phenomenon, because how you're saying, like, as far as, like, you would think having one of the most massive crop formations help blow things open, or you'd have all this information that's coming out. And one of the things that I like to point to, one of the phenomena that seems to be going on is the concept of ghost formations, or how the formations will kind of reappear vaguely a little bit.
Right. The next year in whatever the crop is, if you were above it, you would see that you can see the formation that was there the year before. That happens occasionally. There is some farm explanation for that, some agricultural explanation for it, and then there's still a little bit of controversy. No, there's more to it than that. But anyway, I'll give you the agricultural explanation because I talked to the farmer who gets the most formations in his field, the most best formations, and he's in my movie actually, Tim Carson. And so, hey Tim, what's with these ghost formations? Tim, ghost formations. Look what the phenomenon does. Sorry, Suzanne, it's a farm thing. So what's happening is that the people are walking on seeds that are, let's see, let me get it right. They're grinding these seeds into seed heads into the soil. The slugs eat the seeds, and they create a place where nothing grows because you got slugs that have been attracted to the mashed-in seed. And so when the next crop comes up, the slugs have eaten the pattern. And so that's what he explained to me. Nothing otherworldly about it. But then I've got to go back and recreate the conversation that I had with someone who was quite convinced that there was something more to it. And there was some logic to what she said, and I'll be damned if I can remember it. So my expertise is limited in this reality. If you got any listeners out there that know more than I know, let me know. I can't quite remember who told me it also, but I remember when she told me it was a woman. And she, no, it's not. That's not the whole story. Oh, what is? And out of my mind. Sorry.
Yeah, this is just another one of those expansive points on this huge subject here. Really,
one we need more research on. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I even just like talking about it, because that way it just brings this more to the consciousness of everyone, so that they know that there's more to it than just something making something in the field. That there's things to look into that'll give us clues as to what's going on.
Oh, I mean, definitely. We're dealing with something quite awesome, actually. So it's certainly worth a lot more attention than just, oh, yeah, those things. Even people who say, as I think I mentioned before, and you will get people who say, well, look, we got enough problems on Earth here. Who cares if there's other things running around? I mean, they're not interfering with us. They're not, hurting us. Just ignore them. But, what I'm aware of is they can change consciousness. And, as we put our fingers in the dike trying to solve all of these problems that are really so challenging now, oil and God, what are all of our problems? War, even, and water, and all the things that global warming, it's all fingers in the dike being held in place by our belief system, by our worldview, by the fact that money is the goal of life, and that doesn't make us a cooperative, problem-solving species at the highest level. It makes us a competitive one, looking at short-term results, not at long-term, where we're so endangered, So the idea that we could change the way we feel about ourselves and the way we see the whole universe is not just nothing. It's not just, extra, It's actually fundamental. I mean, it's the new, standing ground from which we could really address all of our problems more effectively if we're thinking together and thinking as one humanity, which is what some of this proof that we are not alone would give rise to. So, it's more important than other things, not less. So again, that's part of my soapbox and my argument.
Oh no, I'm totally with you there. It's true. I mean, these things that it seems like the masses tend to want to just say, oh well, how does that affect me? Hello.
Well, there are a lot of smart people saying that too, but they haven't thought it through. They just haven't, and that's what people like us get to do talks about. That we say, wait, we got to think this again. Got new ideas to bring to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and as far as because I know how it is, but it almost seems like in a lot of ways the intellectuals or the academically trained intellectuals, shall I say, are some of the hardest nuts to crack. And,
that is the absolute truth. As I wander around the world, doing my thing, the people who give me the hardest time generally, who get angry actually when I start talking about crop circles, are the intellectuals. And I think it's maybe because I'm an intellectual, and they think that I've kind of gone south. I've deserted them by being into this weirdo stuff, But it is true. The intellectuals are the hardest ones. One of the things I tend to cite is I graduated from NYU, Phi Beta Kappa, and I graduated summa cum laude. That means I got 100 on almost everything. And I'm no dummy, I'm not just some, gawky, New Age weirdo kind of looking at the stuff and being fooled. I'm a smart person, I've got a lot of intellect. I've got a lot of education. I won the science award when I graduated from college. From high school. So, I bring a keen intelligence to this, and you're listening to somebody you should be paying attention to. So, and I use that just so they can't dismiss me so easily,
Yeah.
My credential.
Absolutely. Yeah, and and with those intellectuals, what's some of those people who are just so adherent to their scientific dogma, really? What is some of the evidence that you like to show them from the lab that you can say, well, this is in the lab, buddy? So
that is the first thing you want to bring up because that's their world too, And so meet them where they are, and just point them at this research that's been done. The papers are very intelligent, they're very articulate. They do state that we can't be making them, and if they'll listen to you. So I notice what happens with those people. They turn their back. They get pissy, and they don't want to talk about it. It's not like they're going to, have an investigation with you. They're going to dismiss you. I mean, it's very odd, I tell you. And the anger that some of them demonstrate, I don't know. It's very peculiar, but I can tell you that it is the fact. That is what happens.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to sell them snake oil, They don't want to hear that at all. They don't want to hear about the value of snake oil. No. It's all crap. So these are the battles that we fight.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I think I'm more of like my focus tends to be a lot on the dream world. I was a born natural lucid dreamer, but it crosses into everything too. But I totally get you because I don't know how many people I've brought in with studies and all kinds of interesting data, and it's like, well, I'll look at it later.
It's hard to get attention. One of the things that I had in my world of producing things prior to the crop circle obsession I'm in was the lucid dreaming guy. Is that his name? I can't remember his name. The main guy from lucid dreaming. Do you know who wrote the books? This was a while ago.
One of the more popular ones I know is Stephen LeBerg.
That's who it is. That's who he was in my living room. He was one of the people I was producing programs for
nice.
Years ago, early on in his work.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. I recommend his book to everyone who's interested in it because it's like
he's a smart guy, right? And he's on to things, really.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the people I show to to introduce people to dreaming, and even if they come from the academic point, cause I'm like, well, this guy was at SRI and all these other places, and there you go, kind of thing. And so,
he legitimizes that world. He's quite wonderful. There's somebody online who's got a hugely extensive website. I believe it's called greatdreams.com, maybe .org, and he's got a lot of correlation between dreams and crop circles. He loves the circles, but his thing is dreams. You might be interested in looking that up.
Actually, I've just kind of checked it out right now, so I'm bookmarking that for that. Yeah.
Such an extensive site. He said, I've got you posted on my site. Oh, yeah? Where? I mean, that's anybody's site.
Okay,
whoa.
Yeah. And
but he's a good guy. I mean, he's very serious about that, and he really does very profound work. I forgot his name now, but there it is on Great Dreams.
Great. Thank you very much. One thing, I was wondering if you had some experience with this too. I'm sure you have because you've been to so many of these formations. But cause I was listening to Barbara Lamb speak on the subject before too, and she was talking about how in the center of some of these formations, how they have like elaborate sort of spires too, a lot of people don't talk about, like as part
well,
of the.
They don't talk about that much. So we think of them as the generic name. We call them features, and so you have your crop that will be woven, you might say, into some nest or tent, or you pick it up and it comes up in a clump. It's together. It's something has woven this stuff. And you just love finding that kind of thing. You got this lovely expanse of carpet with the beautiful lay that the crops have with all the little seed heads all lined up. Oh, isn't that beautiful? And then you come to these little things. You go, oh, isn't that dear? It's like little artworks, made out of wheat.
Yeah.
They tend to be in the center of circular formations or circles in formations. The many formations are made up of multiple circles. But they're sometimes in other shapes as well, but centers are particularly where you will find them. They're lovely. They're quite nice. I actually have I have some footage of some of them in my movie. Nice.
Yeah, those are very intriguing. Some of those I don't know if you even call them that work.
Yeah. Well, they're almost also in the artfulness of it, not just even the weave. You can just see they're like little dots or something that appear sometimes. Like some of the formations might have concentric rings of things, and in one ring of things there might be circles right all next to one another, making a band of ring, and then in the center of every one of those will be one of these little featurey things, and it's part of the artistry of it all, as well as how intriguing it is that they weave crop like that, particularly dry crop. They tend to be in the dry crop. Oh my God, that crop is so brittle. How in the world are they weaving it without it just falling apart? But part of the magic.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the things that when I learned about, I'm like, wow, that's intriguing because I'm an artist as well, and so just working with different materials, looking at some dry wheat and saying, okay, I'm going to weave a basket out of that or a spire out of that.
Really, it's going to crumble in your hands, right?
Yeah, how's that going to work? Let alone in no time. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, again, stuff when you're really paying attention, you go, how can this be? That can't do that. That can't happen. Excuse me, but we're looking at it.
Yeah. I was wondering if you had a chance to investigate any of the circles or the formations done in other media like sand or ice or some of the other things that have been reported.
Well, there are comparable kinds of shapes that will appear, and I see the pictures. I've never seen any of them firsthand, but yes, in sand and ice and snow. The Charles River outside of Boston, I saw a picture of that years ago, early on when I first got into the circles. And for a couple of miles, the Charles River was all little ice flows that had these spiral shapes on top of them. Very, very strange. But, we get those reports. Scandinavian countries, particularly, you'll have snow circles or ice circles. And, again, they're inexplicable. How did these patterns get into, you'll have a body of water and there'll be a circular ice flow flattened, a flat circular ice flow in the middle of the body of water, and on top of the ice flow you got a pattern, Well, so I don't know. You can't call them crop circles, but they certainly have a kind of a parallel. You can see the similarity just by virtue of the design.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Same source, different source. Maybe it's like artists from elsewhere, and some of the artists would be, if it were our artists, some would work in pastels, some would work in oils, some would do collage. Well, maybe the artists from elsewhere just like to work in different materials,
Yeah.
And I like to think of it that way.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I mean, whether that's the intention or not, it's kind of how it's working out. So
it is. I mean, you can't explain those things either. Your similarity is that where could these be coming from? So we'll put him in that same sort of basket with crop circles.
Yeah. What were some of the more significant formations that did happen in the United States?
Well, I have a montage in the film international crop circles. Now, since my film is based in England, I'm in the U.S., but the film is all in England. So when we say international, that means the U.S. is not home base anymore. And so we have, I think, 3 formations in that montage, more than any other country, just because I come from the U.S. And they were Indian burial ground. You know, that's where I think all 3 of them were different states. The ones in the United States, when we used to get them, used to mostly be near the Canadian border. Ohio, I hope I'm right that Ohio is by the Canadian border. Anyway, that had the most, and anyway, they tend to be north, but not all of them. Some of them have been in other states, and I don't know that any of them had any particular names, but they're not, they weren't junk. I mean, the ones you'll see in the formations that I selected for the montage from all over the world, each of them was, quite a lovely formation. So you've got 3 lovely ones. One was Idaho in the movie, I remember, and Ohio was another one. I can't remember where the third one was from, but they're very nice. I mean, I don't have any particular anecdotes about them, other than I'll tell you one thing. There's a very active researcher group in the United States. Even though we get very few formations, they have a little conference every spring in Ohio, and but what they will do is that whenever there is a formation reported, they'll get on airplanes and they will sample the material. They will take it into the laboratory. They will determine whether it has genuine properties or seems to be a hoax. They're very, very dedicated and, are really willing to get on airplanes. So you have, in a way, some more authentication of what's real in the United States than you have in England.
Wow. It's really cool.
Yeah, really.
Is there, have you noticed, is there like because I know England is very, popular for these formations. Do you find the same sort of notoriety or publicity when they happen here in the States?
What happens in the States is they get a lot of local press, and now we've got the Internet, we can tune into that sort of thing. That wherever they land, the local press is, really having a field day, and a lot of action, a lot of interest, a lot of controversy always, Did the boys from, the college make them, or the pub in England? That's what they say. The boys from the pub made them all. But they never make national press. I've never seen a story about an American one. I mean, maybe they have been, but I haven't seen them. And they certainly do make a lot of local press. But, again, the media is so complacent about all of this. They're so disinterested in all of it. But when it's in the backyard, they get interested,
Yeah. How about in England? How are the farmers who have this appear? How do they seem to how receptive are they? Do they let you guys go on pretty easily, or do they?
Well, good question. Good question. They run a range, as life would have it, as human beings are. There are ones that just love them. They love having them on their land. The better ones, they tend to put out what they call an honesty box, and they ask people to put in a little money to go into them. One of the issues with the honesty boxes is they get stolen, but that's another issue they get broken into.
Ironic.
But people are pretty good about it. They'll stick money in them, and, in a way, it's like the farmer's going to lose his crop when people trample it, and so, you feel okay about giving them a little bit of money. So we have those farmers. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have farmers that will get their shotguns out and say, "You come in my field, I'm going to shoot you." Or they'll take their tractor or whatever, their farm equipment, and they'll plow it, or their plow, and they'll plow it out so that it's not there anymore. There have been some funny instances where they'll plow it out, and the next night there's the same thing that appears right next to it. It's like the circle makers go, "Oh, ho, ho, you took us out. Well, we're going to just make another one."
Yeah.
But they do that. In fact, one of the very best ones ever, which has a name they've ascribed to it, they call it the basket. I have a picture of it in the movie. It's one of the first images that comes up. You'll probably see it in the trailer, actually, if you get on cropcirclemovie.com. The trailer is the first thing that you'll see. And we call it the basket because it actually has a weave in it of the crop, where it's not just a little feature, it's the actual ground lay of the crop, where it's over, under, you know, the way you would weave a basket. Well, nobody ever got into that one because the farmer plowed it out. But thank God somebody was up in the air, because it is really spectacular. And they did get, you know, aerial footage of it. So we just have this little snippet of aerial footage to commemorate the fact that we had this magnificent creation.
Yeah, I've seen the basket formation too, and that is definitely a interesting, unique one for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
That would have been a cool one to get some samples from, I'm sure.
Well, you know, the farmer wouldn't let you near it, so forget it.
Yeah, you gotta brave the shotgun blast.
You hardly need samples of that one, because you look at that one and you go, oh, wait a minute. There's no way. I mean, somebody's going to sit on their knees, or, you know, and like weavers are going to weave a crop circle. Come on. It doesn't, you know, they're too big. There's too much to it. You know, the English night is too short.
Yeah, and you have a trigger-happy farmer there.
Right. Well, he's not out in the middle of the night, so, you know, we can't pin that part of it on him. But
I'm just being goofy.
Pardon me?
I said just being goofy there.
Just being goofy. Oh, okay. Well, you know, we're approaching 0 hour here, so you get to be a little goofy at the end.
Yeah, we are winding down here. And actually, on that note, maybe is there anything coming up that you have that you want to promote as well? Any other appearances or interviews, or then obviously, of course,
your
movie?
Well, the big deal is New York. Anybody who has any kind of help to offer, groups I can talk to, media I can, you know, impress and get them to interview me, that would be great. And there's some long lead kinds of publications that you need to get on it right now. So if anybody has any connections like that would come out in New York, April, when the movie is going to be there, which is April 22nd, that's the big, you know, prospect that's coming up now that we're looking forward to and excited about. And
very cool.
And aside from that, you know, it's just get on cropcirclemovie.com, take a look at the trailer, be impressed and buy the DVD, and then when you get on my mailing list, if you buy it, you get on it, or if you sign up and don't buy it, you get on it, and then I'll, you know, communicate with you and welcome you and tell you all the things that you might be able to do for us on Facebook and Twitter, and, you know, encourage people, because people, you know, they're not just watching a movie like you'd watch a romantic comedy. They're getting involved in something that gets them excited, and you know, I try to enroll people in being the emissaries that will take this back out and show it to their groups. And if they're going to do that, I want them to contact me, because then I send them little guidelines for how to promote it the best and what have you, and do the most good for the movie and spread it around the best. But looking for all the help I can get, and it's for us all, you know, it's for us all to wake up to a bigger reality.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you want, I can get in contact with you, because there's a couple of places you might be able to speak here locally that I know of. But then definitely we have
all those things I like doing, especially close to home. I mean, that's really easy, you know.
Yeah.
So very, very happy to. You're in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm actually in Orange County. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually spoken to the Evolver group down there.
Oh yeah. Oh
so
yeah.
They showed my movie there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, I remember getting the email for that. I think I had.
Yeah, right. They showed it at the LA Evolver, and they showed it at. Well, they actually showed it at Paradigm, Butterfly Project here, which is kind of all related. Oh, those are all Daniel Pinchbeck kind of originations.
Gotcha.
But you know, have movie will travel. So
awesome.
I'm happy to show up any place that, you know, is interested and promises to, you know, turn around and spread the word.
Yeah, definitely. All right, yeah. Well, we'll definitely keep in contact, and may have some endeavors in the future together here too.
Well, here I am looking for all the, you know, cooperation and allies and whatever. So
great.
happy to have you in my camp here.
Yeah, well, I'm honored. Thank you, and we're honored to have you as a guest today for sure. So.
Gosh, we spent 2 hours. I can't believe it.
yeah, it just flies. Like I said, especially when you have a great subject to talk about and such a depth of knowledge.
Well, you're good, too. You ask good questions. So, people like us need people like you.
Well, thank you very much. I try my best.
Yeah, you do. You ask good questions. Kept it all, kept me flowing and, giving you all my gems.
Well, it really was an honor. And, maybe we'll have you back on some other time, too, in the future. So.
Sure, let's do 4 hours.
Just go hard.
You got to wait for me to get some new stories.
But, all right. Well, thanks for joining us here for these past couple hours. We're just about out of time here. We've got about a minute left. So,
all right, cropcirclemovie.com, theconversation.org. So that's my message.
Awesome. And thank you for that message, and thank you for all of your hard work.
Well, you're more than welcome. It's really my pleasure.
All right, great. So, all right, everyone, that's been another show here at the Universal Truth Evolution, and thanks again for showing up today and with all your support. And I hope everyone found today's discussion intriguing and informative. So, thank everyone, and we'll catch everyone again next time. I'll play us out here with one of our favorites, shall I?
Accurately from two kindly